Does Space Jam hold up? 3D, 2D? Let's get into it.
Hey guys, and welcome back to AsArt with Nick and John. We post 3 times a week, so check out asart.space for all the audio and video links. And hit subscribe if you're watching on YouTube so you can get notified of new releases.
Space Jam, the animated live-action 2D. Bill Murray, come on! It's so freaking good!
Oh, man. So, I had never seen this until Nick suggested we watch this because we're watching The Last Dance, which is the Netflix ESPN series on the Chicago Bulls in their last season. And Nick's like, oh, have you ever seen... He goes, we should do an episode on Space Jam. I'm like, oh, that lame animated feature.
How dare you. No, I'm just kidding.
But I'd never seen it. So I totally was, judging it before seeing it.
I grew up with this, man. This is childhood for me, man.
Well, and that's the funny thing, too, is my wife, Kate, she had seen it a bunch of times. She goes, I'll watch it with you. I'm like, all right, fine. So we watched it, and I liked it way more than I thought I was. Way more than it probably deserved, but I totally enjoyed it. It helps when you watch it with someone that's really into it as well. But honestly, the animation quality in it is really top notch, especially when you think about traditional 2D animation where they don't have like really deeply shaded characters and things like that. The 3D, even though they're in the early days of 3D, was really solid in the shots they did it. So you grew up with it, so you might have the nostalgia goggles. But what do you remember about it? And was it the same this time?
I remembered everything. I was singing every song. I was like, "Come on and jam if you wanna play," and like.
Man, this thing reeks of 90s music. Yeah, this movie reeks of 90s music, which is a good thing and a bad thing. There's some songs I thought didn't fit at all, but there's some songs that are like, oh, it's just fun.
Moron Mountain or something like that.
Well, actually, when they flew by the planet said Moron Mountain, I asked Kate, I turned on, did that say Moron Mountain? She started laughing. She's like, sure did. I was like, wow, I wasn't ready for that.
Yeah. Okay, so let's just like jump into it. Like, I think the most important thing, like you have your 2D, 3D stuff, but we get the interaction, the Roger Rabbit, right? We get a live action with the the 2D animated characters interacting and stuff. That's when Jordan gets pulled through the golf hole. Well, when Bill Murray's like, "What's this camera?" And he like throws the camera or whatever.
No, he's like, yeah, the guy from Jurassic Park is taking the picture, and then he points at Bill Murray. He's like, "Don't point that at me!" Like, where did he go? It was hilarious. But yeah, you know what? I obviously, if you guys have seen Roger Rabbit and you watch Space Jam, you're going to think immediately, "Oh, this is kind of like Roger Rabbit." But this definitely went further because
it's a
right
total
away,
step up for sure.
Oh yes, for sure, and so. I love Roger Rabbit. I think it's super fun. I would love to have another Roger Rabbit film. But the interaction isn't as often as it is saying, Roger Rabbit, where the whole time they're having interactions between the characters. But at the same time, man, the shading on the cartoons, especially when they're in the live action areas, is just so good. The part that pops out for me, and we're jumping around a little bit, but when Bugs and Daffy are in the house and they're walking around, and as they go from room to room, you see the lighting change on their legs and their bodies and the color. And I can't remember, were we already into digital compositing at this point, or were they optically compositing these shots?
That's a good question. It's 1996, so it's a year after Toy Story. Toy Story is 1995. And
when did we get Terminator 2? Do you remember?
I don't know Terminator 2, but I think Jurassic Park was like 93.
93?
If that helps with anyone watching.
Terminator... Well, I'm trying to think of when they started doing digital compositing regularly. They did some compositing on The Abyss, and then Terminator 2 was a big jump forward. I think Terminator 2 might have been the first one.
There could have been digital compositing because there's a lot of green screen.
Yes, and you don't see the traditional lines that you see when you were doing optical compositing because you have really fine detail and things like that that usually you see matte lines and things like that. But yeah, it seems like it was really solidly done here.
That's maybe that's why they gave Bill Murray a cap for the key when he's playing the basketball game at the end. I just thought of that. Because you don't have to worry about the hair and stuff. Oh, I don't know. Never mind. No, because what's his name had hair. What's his name had hair the whole time too. The guy from Jurassic Park. I'm sorry, I don't know your name. But
I know we totally should. He's such an accomplished actor too. He's been in so many things. And actually, let's talk about that because if that's from Jurassic Park and Seinfeld, we should know your name, but we don't. But if he was in the movie, I feel like this whole movie would have just fallen flat. He was a great addition to the movie for sure, as far as the acting and things like that. He's just the shot where, we'll go in order.
Well, let's go back to the house scene, because like the 2D animation stuff was beautiful. Why was the dog so large and looked like it was comped on with the background? Like
he was comped on for sure. Yeah,
like it was so weird. Even when the dog walked away, I'm like,
Well, that was a shot for sure, because the perspective was off, and
everything.
I think the lenses might have been different, and obviously, the one thing I'll say about this film for sure, in the context of all the effects and the animation, it didn't have to look perfect because it's a Looney Tunes. It's supposed to not look real,
but it looked weird.
You were able to get away with a little bit more. Yeah, that shot in particular looked really weird with the dog.
That's one thing. Like, so they're going to be remaking this with LeBron James and stuff.
I think it's a mistake.
But I mean,
so let's make a quick guess right now. Do you think that's going to be successful?
Yeah, because it's LeBron James.
Really? I don't feel
this
like
was successful because Michael Jordan's in it. LeBron James is like the biggest name in basketball right now. Like, it's gonna make money.
He's nearly as mainstream and in like pop culture as Michael Jordan was in the time?
I think he's getting there. I mean enough to do well in theaters for sure. I mean, put Bugs Bunny behind it, put a pro athlete behind it, and like you're getting the nostalgia from people like me. And then, like, you have the younger kids, too.
Yeah, that's
like,
true.
It's, Space Jam, Bugs Bunny. I mean, just like when they made this, Bugs Bunny was nostalgia for the parents before them. You know what I mean? Like, kind of thing. Like, it works. Or, it's a recipe that works, but...
Or this could be like rebooting Ghostbusters, with different actors, and it just completely falls flat. So we'll have to see.
There was one thing, though, that I wish they animated Michael Jordan a little bit more. Like, a little bit more goofy. Like, cause like even though they did the things where he posed and there's like the OK stamp on his head, or like like when he's taking the temperature. I wish maybe
and his arm,
I mean the arm, but like that was the only thing that was really animated from him. I wanted more different, more squash and stretch to show that he's in that world maybe. But I mean, technology at the time, I'm probably really asking for a lot. Like probably not in the budget to do at this point, because probably all went to Michael and his custom basketball court and all the pro players that came in and his weights in his gym. That's probably where the whole budget went.
And you know what? I was fascinated by this movie as far as I think I'm probably going to read more of the backstory leading up to this movie, because that's an odd concept. I could picture this as a commercial or a short little TV show, but a full feature-length movie, that's hard to keep going. That's what I think impressed me the most about this film, is the whole way through you were entertained. You never felt like, all right, this is getting stale, this is getting too old. They were always throwing in new aspects to it where it wasn't lacking in entertainment value at all the whole way through.
Dude, what about what about Charles Barkley?
Yeah, it's funny because the acting must have been very difficult for everybody, because they're putting in it makes you really appreciate Roger Rabbit as well, because this one guy was acting with nobody basically the whole film. You're on a blue screen stage. At least that guy was an actor. Michael Jordan is not an actor, and he's being asked to react and look at things, and you can tell it was a struggle, but considering the dude's not an actor, he did a really good job. I mean,
his charm,
for sure.
His personality totally made it through. You know what I mean? Like, you could tell he must have been such a chill, easygoing guy. Like, you know what I mean? Like, to just get through this process, and then like if you watch The Last Dance, how much he was playing basketball behind the scenes too and filming. It's like, dude, this guy, man. Guy's awesome.
So the whole reason I think I mentioned is we got into this because of The Last Dance, but then they talk about Space Jam. I think you would wanted to watch before we even got to that episode. And something that I thought was really fun about the series is they kind of poke fun at Michael Jordan's career and choices. Well, first off, the beginning, when they have him being interviewed that he wants to play baseball, they have him recreate really kind of not touchy subject matter, but they're talking about his dad dying, or my dad saw my last game, and they kind of recreate his retirement speech. Was a rough time in his life. So they hint at his gambling, things that have been like in the media over the years. They have some interesting choices as far as storytelling in the film, and then they poke fun at baseball, of course.
Yeah, it's so funny. It's so funny, like the little pokes and jabs, but he must have approved it with the script. So,
well, I mean, you have to wonder, he approved it. but at the same time, did it bother him? Because it seems like this is a guy that gets, if you guys have seen The Last Dance, he's really bothered by any type of competition, not being the best, and, you know, them poking fun at that. Hopefully he's able to take a strap. You have to imagine that it was bothering him a little bit. It's like, okay, fine.
Yeah. All right, so let's talk about the 3D in this.
Yeah.
So what about when the Monstars crush Michael Jordan up to a ball and they bounce him around and pass him and stuff? What did you think of the 3D?
I thought it looked perfect for what it was doing. I mean, I thought it looked perfectly fine. I mean, if you were trying to shoot for absolute realism and things like that, obviously
I know.
But they're animated characters crinkling him up, and you see his face animate, so they actually had to animate that 3D. I thought it looked cheesy a little bit, but when you think about the time period, how much work went into it at the time, and then the context, I think it worked amazingly well.
Do you think that worked better than when they pumped him up, the other dude, like a big balloon?
Honestly, I thought when you get crazy interaction between 2D and 3D, and you actually are, like, the 2D are actually altering the live action characters, I just think that's a special thing, as you know, a lot of work goes into that. So I thought that worked really well, but then later on when they have the Jurassic Park guy that's flattened out on the floor, I thought that was even more fun. But I thought both of the scenes, I actually almost wish there was more of that. But then again, you get too much of a good thing, and then it kind of falls flat. But you sound like you're upset by my answer.
Oh,
so
it looks so it reminds me of the first test of Pixar, or even Andy, or humans in the early stages of 3D. They just they were like clay or dolls. You know what I mean? They didn't have that where we're at now, I want to say, kind of thing.
Well, if they would have tried to do this in a serious story context, it would have fallen and failed completely. But in this context, where it's unrealistic things for the sake of fun and 2D animation integration, I thought they were great.
I love the little goop when it goes up into the player and all that stuff like that.
Yeah.
What is it like? Because I know we're gonna talk about Ghostbusters and other stuff. What is it with the coloring? Why is magic around this time and Ghostbusters always the same orangish, purplish colors?
Purplish.
Did Ghostbusters set the standard for color from
I don't know. I didn't think about that, because part of the time when they turned that kind of orangish, bluish, it was when they were supposed to be invisible, right? And regular people couldn't see them. Yeah. But it really does kind of look like the proton packs in Ghostbusters a little bit. And we're about to jump into that.
I'm just saying the whole color palette of it. I'm just they must have just and then even when it goes when they touch the ball and they're like, whoa! It's so good. Oh my gosh, it's so good. It's so good. I'm amazed how well it holds up. Because you even look at Toy Story sometimes, you're just you see it now. You know what I mean? 'Cause especially there's new Toy Stories. So when you see the newer Toy Stories, and you go back to the first one, you can really see at least this isn't comparing to a new, Space Jam yet. But you know what?
I think it's probably aged. I mean, you can still go back and watch Toy Story and be completely entertained, really love it. But I remember when I was working at one of the colleges, I was talking to an instructor, and I said, I think game engines are really at a point where you could make a film or a short or whatever and not miss that it's not rendered by traditional visual effects pipelines at all. And she goes, I disagree. She goes, would you watch this? Would you watch a movie made in this? And she pulled up a video made in Unreal. I said, yeah, I absolutely would. And she disagreed with me, saying that, just modern visual effects pipelines look way better. I said, well, yeah, but do you go back and watch Toy Story 1? She goes, yeah. I said, well, that looks way worse now. But so I think one of the reasons that Toy Story hasn't aged as well is maybe this, even though they're completely different, not, apples to apples comparison, is because the context of this spliced in with 2D animation, and it's done in a more kind of fun-loving way. Whereas Toy Story, fun, kind of a cartoon, but at the same time they're telling a serious story. They're more serious about the technology than this movie was, I think, even though it was still very impressive. Does that make sense, or would you disagree?
No, that totally makes sense. You know what I mean? But I think it works. It's funny.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
We laugh a lot. Michael Jordan did his part. Thumbs up. Space Jam, thumbs up.
Yeah, I mean that really must have been hard. And, a weird thing I was thinking about too for this movie is they built a basketball court that he practiced on, but when he was shooting when he was filming all these shots where he had to shoot shoot baskets where he's interacting with these cartoon characters, he was on a green screen or a blue screen, and that's going to be a different finish on the court. It's not an actual basketball court. That'd be too reflective. Yeah. So he's probably acting on a cyclorama. You guys, if you're not used to that, is kind of a curved green screen or blue screen, so you can get the feet all the way up to, wherever he's jumping and things like that. That must have been hard to film those scenes because you're used to all the markings on the court, which he's not going to have. You're used to the, the kind of feel and the tension on the shoes and stuff like that. So very interesting stuff. Very interesting.
That intro motion graphics was almost like a strobe effect. The intro with the basketball thing, I was just like, this is overload. This is too much.
Yeah, this is intense. Yeah.
I was just like,
and I love strobes and stuff, but some people get sick watching that too. They're like, oh, it's too much strobe.
I didn't realize how intense that was. Come on. I was just like, oh my gosh. Like, and it goes on for like, it's like 7 minutes too. And it's like 7 minutes. That's like the full song. It's like, oh my gosh. Like sometimes you'll get like a cool intro, then it'll just be text, underneath like the opening scenes and stuff like that. People talking, like who worked on it. But I was just like, this is overload.
Yeah. I thought that was maybe not the best choice, but yeah, I don't know.
90s.
Yeah, 90s. I love the 90s though. Oh man, what a good time. So if you had to rate this from 0 to 10 as far as not just movie, but as far as, so we'll do movie overall and then how well it's held up. But I'm asking you because you saw it when you were younger too. How well is it held up, and how would you rate the movie overall?
Comedy wise and everything, I don't know. I'll give it like a 7. I think it was good. Mm-hmm. And then visual effects like wise and like I'll give it like a 6. I think like it looks good. It's because of the 3D. Because since I do 3D stuff, and it's just like I just want to fix it so badly. Like my eyes just catching, like you know what I mean? Like I see it, I want to fix it, but it works. But man, I wish. I mean, the 2D is amazing. Like they have the smears. They did all the right stuff when it came to like timing and framing and all that stuff. Like you can't knock on there's some things with the 3D was kind of weird, but with the 2D, which was kind of weird. But like overall though, great job, great animation, great 3D at the time. Like you can't. I mean, Pixar didn't even do realistic at the time. Like, you know what I mean? Like they were trying something Pixar wasn't even trying, which is super cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you?
So obviously, this is the first time I've seen it, obviously. But if I had to try and project myself back to, place myself back in that time period or understand the difficulties they would have doing that at that time period, as far as a movie overall, I'd give it maybe like a 6 or a 7 probably. Mm-hmm. Is it a movie I'm ever going to watch again in my lifetime? Probably not. But was it way better than I thought it was going to be? Yeah. So I enjoyed it. And then if you think about yeah, exactly. So, but if you're thinking about the effects holding up and things like that, I'd give it maybe like an 8 because when the little what eventually be the monsters, the aliens, right? When they're going through the ground, like it's like 3D, and they're going through the alien city, and then they're penetrating through the Warner Brothers logo and stuff like that. I thought all that looked really, really good. And you imagine, I'm curious to, and this is the easy.
That's almost the 2D though.
I'm curious what the budget. Oh. I don't know. I can't tell if the when they were going through the Earth and stuff like that. So
I think what they did was
mixed in with 2D. I think.
Yeah, I think they would like do it in 3D, but they went over it in 2D to kind of give it a better render. Probably. Yeah.
But which is a smart thing to do. They've done that in The Simpsons. They've done that in all kinds of films, right?
100%. Yeah.
Just have
you want to keep it in the right style. You know what I mean? If your computer can't render that style, you're gonna have to go. You have to roto it or do whatever you need to do to make it stay code.
But at the very least, you're not having to guess what the perspective and lighting changes are because you still are getting that. So it's like getting, I'm not a great traditional artist, but it's like getting light reference and things like that. Okay, this is how the light's going to fall. I'll paint it in the style that I want, but I can get reference of what it needs to look like. But yeah, I thought it was honestly really, really good. And the shading on the 2D I thought was especially impressive. The 3D for the time period I thought was
fantastic.
Good. Like it was a fun show. It was just silly fun. Like, should this have been made into a movie? Probably not, but
thank you for making it.
I think it did well enough to where they're making a reboot of it in 2020, and it was a fun ride, and it goes to show how big of a star Michael Jordan was for them to make a feature film based on basically him and his image with cartoon characters, basically a Roger Rabbit. Just for Michael Jordan's image. That's basically what this was, right? Yeah, but basketball, yeah. So hopefully, guys, if you haven't seen Space Jam, definitely try and get a hold of it on Netflix or something like that. Netflix, I'm one of the few Americans that still get discs in the mail, so I was able to add it into the queue. But check that out if you haven't seen it. It's really, really fun. Especially, it's like a fun little companion piece if you guys are watching The Last Dance on Netflix or seeing it on ESPN. It's just a fun companion piece to that, and then a fun little part of like animation history. So really, really fun stuff. If you like what we're doing, we're covering a lot of different things on the channel. Give us suggestions. We always love that. Check out AsArt.space for all the audio and video links. Hit subscribe if you like what we're doing on YouTube. Thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you on the next AsArt.